I have had the privilege to have in-person interviews with both of my older sisters. One of my sisters' episode launched really beginning in this podcast journey, and I just had the honor to interview my oldest sister, Becky, who is currently navigating an adventure of her own. She just got back from a month in Bali in Thailand after leaving her job very unforeseeingly, and she's a type A planner and has totally learned how to let go of control. She went to a retreat where she focused on self-awareness, and all the things that she was seeking was what brought her joy within her career after leaving her job, and kind of on this self-discovery journey that she's been on for the last couple months, and kind of being there by her side, supporting her and being her cheerleader is what not only myself but other members of our family have been doing for her. And it's just so captivating to see her grow and into the woman that she's becoming, to kind of take off that superhero woman cape and let go of control, release the control, set the proper boundaries in place for yourself to have a healthier life, to grow as a wife, a mother, a daughter. She's and in her career mostly. That's what she went to this retreat for, was to hopefully get clarity and answers on what she was supposed to do moving forward, because what she was doing no longer brought her that joy and that happiness that she once had with her previous job. And now into this next chapter of her life, she is hoping that this will take her on her next journey, on her next adventure. And please join me in welcoming my oldest sister, Rebecca Lewis, on the Kindred Journey podcast. Welcome to the Kindred Journey podcast, the podcast where women share their experiences of stepping into courage when comfort is no longer an option. This is the podcast for connecting in community with women who have been shaped by the liberating to challenging seasons that life endures. I am your host, Leslie. I am a wife, mother, daughter, sister, and friend. I too have experienced these seasons in life, and I want you to know that you are surrounded by a community of courageous, real women here for you. I can't wait to connect, so grab your favorite beverage and join me on this kindred journey. Hi, Rebecca. How are you today?
I'm good, Leslie. How are you?
I'm doing well. I have you here in person, which is always special to interview live and face to face. And we have Bridger here with us as well.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
He is a podcast baby. He went to a podcasting summit in May with me, and he's been on a few podcast interview episodes. So I can't unfortunately mute my end of this conversation because we're in the same room. So we're just gonna roll with it. But thank you for willing to be be a guest on the show. I asked you, I think a few weeks ago or a month ago. Oh gosh, time flies when you're having fun. But to be on the podcast as a special guest, and I know plenty about you because you are my oldest sister, and I am very honored to have you here with me. And like I said, I know plenty about you, but if you'd be willing to share with everyone a little bit of an introduction and a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, it is super fun to be here, Leslie, and be able to be in this space with you together and share some special family time with the boys and um, our sister adventure we just went on. That was
Yes.
super fun. That might be a future episode for you. Who knows?
Maybe.
What you learned.
Choose your heart.
But I am Rebecca Lewis. Family calls me Becky, so either is fine. I am Leslie's oldest sister, and that is truly a privilege. Um, I am 16 years older than her.
I was standing corrected by my sisters that I have been saying they are older than they would like to account for. So I've been saying
Right.
that they're 16 and 18 years older than me on some episodes, and they did just correct me and say 14 and 16 years. So,
So yeah, 16 years older than Leslie. So you know, I think that a lot of our time we have been closest as we've gotten older. So that has
mhm.
been super fun. And as Leslie has her two young ones, mine are young adults. And so it's kind of fun to relive some of those moments as a parent through Leslie's eyes. Um, and I am an educator. That is what I am by trade. Um, Leslie was just listening. We were just talking. It is my birthday coming up, so I'm also a Leo. You need to know that. That might go into some of my adventurous spirit. I love to travel. I always have. I was spent a lot of my time as a um, young kid and teenager into my late teens, early 20s with my grandmother traveling, and then as an adult traveling with her and taking her places. She is my inspiration for adventure and where I got my adventurous spirit from. But I am a planner as well. That is an important detail as we talk today. That I am typically a tremendous planner in advance.
Yes. I literally got a invitation, an evite or on the calendar for my oldest nephew's graduation in June during Christmas.
Gotta plan ahead,
You
Leslie.
have to plan ahead. I am learning that as a mom. But I was, yes, you
Sometimes.
are the wonderful planner and organizer of the family.
Yes, typically I am. Let's see here.
Married.
I'm married. We're going on actually 27 years, the end of this month.
On the 27th.
On the 27th. Yes, it's like that golden, that golden birthday or whatever, but it's like that when they whatever it's called when the day matches. I can't remember what it's called, but yes, 27 years on the 27th. And I live in California. Um, I still live nearby where we grew up. So miss seeing Leslie, but have been up here to visit several times this year. Let's see here. Yes, the oldest sister of three and mom of two boys. Um, and daughter of Luann. I know she's been on one of the podcasts before, and she is certainly just the the roots that ground us. So just nod to my mom right now.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, she's the glue that like keeps not just us, but the family together. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I am glad you emphasized on the adventure and the planner aspect of I did kind of say, I like to do months of topics on the
Mhm.
podcast with courage because there's so many different forms of courage and adventure is the theme this month. And I want you to know that this is a safe space for you to share your story, and everything that you do say is honored and respected. I want you to have this time. I know showing up and sharing, especially, I think if I know what you're going to share, you haven't told me exactly. And I love letting women choose their moments and seasons of courage on the show. But it is pretty fresh if I'm going
Yeah.
to guess what story you might be sharing today. So uh, thank you for being on here. And if there is a moment or a season that is coming to mind that is speaking to your heart to share, where you did step into courage when comfort was truly no longer an option, I would love for you to share with us.
Well, sure. Well, first of all, I want to share that um, I am going to talk about I recently resigned from my job in April. And it was a kind of a mutual resignation, I would say. Like it was a time that it was no longer working out for, I think, any of us. And I think the idea when you're courageous, when comfort is no longer an option, like the word comfort, I've thought about that a lot because it wasn't comfortable, but it was the easiest thing to do. It
Mhm.
wasn't joyful. It wasn't comfort. I think of cozy, homey, something that you're settling in that does bring you some joy. And I think there's a little like oxymoron in that, but also it can mean something that's just easy because you fear the unknown. And so I really thought a lot about that. Like I was no longer comfortable in the setting I was in, but it did take courage to get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't necessarily what I thought I needed,
Mm-hmm.
and it was scary. Um, but so I guess, it was courageous in that moment, thinking about choosing, courage over comfort. But it was just I I am not risk adverse, but I also am not overly risky. So to really shake things up and not have a plan ahead is not like me at all. Nobody believed me, actually.
Right?
So I think that was, so leaving that was a catalyst, and it was scary and I didn't know what was going to happen, and I still don't know everything, and I'm so okay with that. Um but I think in that I knew I wanted to really find out a little bit more about myself, and I had been thinking of going to Southeast Asia just because before all this happened. And so in about a week, maybe a week and a half's time, I made a quick decision to book a retreat in Bali and then head to Thailand and booked my flight. I actually was at your house, Leslie, when I booked the flight
Mm-hmm.
in late April.
That
Eh,
was a week after.
About a week. And I came home from your house and I went home and I told my husband, I said, Aaron, I'm going to go to Bali on Thursday. And he's like, that's not like you. That was his response. That's not like you. He's totally supportive. He just knew, like, you don't make decisions that fast. You plan everything out. So he was very supportive, and so was my whole family. And I got on the plane and off to Bali I went. And so kind of why, I'm sure that might be something you're wondering, like,
Yeah.
why Bali?
Well, yeah, I mean, I remember when you were here when my newborn-ish son was, gosh, I think he was like 3 weeks old the first time you came up
First
to
time.
visit,
Mhm.
and you said, I'm thinking about going on a retreat, this summer. I said, that's wonderful. That's sounds like it's so up your alley. And then for it to just kind of unfold the way it did, that was early April. End of April, you had left your job. And you're like, I'm going on a retreat now, and why not? Because I don't have a job, and to start. Or
Right.
so yeah, I mean, why not? More so than why.
Yeah.
I guess why not would be the adventure side of that question versus the why, or like you said,
Yeah.
the fear, letting kind of dictate a uncomfortable situation. Like you said, you weren't really comfortable, but you knew you needed a change because it wasn't bringing you the joy and happiness that it may have
Yes.
once upon a time.
Yeah. And it used to. My job did bring me some joy and happiness. And really my goal was to rediscover what brings me joy
Mhm.
and happiness, not always other people. I mean, that's
Mhm.
what I found was kind of the disconnect, is I was so often putting others in front of myself, and sometimes we have to when we have young kids, like, but sometimes, when it's truly at the expense of ourselves and we see ourselves changing, it was taking a toll on my mental health, was seriously affected,
Mhm.
more than I have shared with anyone.
Mm.
Um, no one in my family really knows how drastic my mental health situation was, and that I knew I needed to do something to really help myself feel comfortable in my own self. So that I just wasn't even comfortable in my own with myself. I was not my best self with my family. There were strained relationships with one of my children, and I just didn't feel like I was the best of anything. I didn't feel like
Mhm.
I was the best for anyone, especially myself. So that was kind of the why. Like, okay, I need to go. And I knew I needed to do it by myself.
Mm.
I knew this wasn't something I could wanted to do or could do, or would get the same out of if I would have traveled maybe with other people, at least for the first part, the retreat part in Bali. I really needed to do this. And it was a self awareness retreat. The focus was yoga and meditation and self awareness activities, but it also had like adventure trips, hiking, dolphins, water purification. It had a lot of activities that you did, but it also had spa services. So, like there was a lot. I'm not quite the yogi that our middle sister is. So I wanted it to be, not just yoga. And that's what a lot of Bali retreats were. So this one
Okay.
in particular, at the Santika um, retreat was really, it had everything I felt like I kind of needed. And I will tell you, it was beautiful to only have to plan for myself, to
Mm.
only be responsible for myself. I think that's the only time I've really felt that was the only person I really had to take care of for
Mm.
those couple weeks in Bali. Just just me. And then I was in Thailand for 2 weeks after that. Um, and I know, having two young ones, you know now like how much you have to put others constantly in your planning for your our husbands, we're planning for our children, we're planning for our family, and we love everyone, and I love doing that too. And so that's why I say I am a planner, and I love to do that. But sometimes I think the reset was I just need to plan for me. I just want to
Mhm.
do this for me. I don't want to have to be responsible for all the other people I was responsible for at my job.
Mm.
Like I just need to be responsible for myself.
Right, right. Well, thank you for sharing that. Especially, it does take the courage to share, sometimes when your mental health is not well, like you said, you're not showing up as the best version of yourself for the ones you love, but also for yourself. And I think that that's important. And I kind of talked about that on a few episodes, like postpartum depression,
Hmm.
something I've experienced, and that's something that's not, it's not very beautiful to share, but it's something that is important. And so thank you, because I think having the courage to share that, it gives others permission to say, oh, it's okay to not be okay, because that might be, I can relate to that or something. So thank you for first sharing that. And I can totally relate. And I don't think the mental load of motherhood, or a big time, like you ran a whole department, like you
Yeah.
had a big responsibility on your shoulders, not just from your career, but you're managing a family and all the other not obligations but responsibilities,
Both.
that both, yeah, that you had to tend to. And so that mental load does take away from you, from joy, from happiness, from it is an obligation. So
Yeah.
and like you said, we enjoy doing it, but to be able to create that time and space for yourself. And like you said, it was a little bit of a full circle retreat, not just focusing on one thing like yoga. It was so many activities, and it sounds like it was kind of more of a open door policy with, like, it
Yeah.
sounds like maybe that's why you were able to get in a spot like it wasn't like a set retreat for 2 weeks on these dates. It
Right.
was more of like people came, people went, it was kind of, it seemed like, and all ages, all, male,
Yep.
female, like
Yes.
people from different countries. Sounds like it was
It was
really.
it was amazing. And I know you know a lot about it, but your listeners probably don't. But it was like some people were there for 8 days, some people were there. I was there for 12, a little bit and ended up being a little bit more. And then other people were there for 21 days. So the itineraries were kind of the same, like on Mondays, every Monday they kind of did the same
Mhm.
thing, Tuesdays, but you could kind of people kind of came and went, and so they just started on whatever day they came, with the itinerary. So it was just wonderful, and I felt so welcome the first day I was there. It's a long ways to it's a long flight. Um, uh, and I was tired, so I got in really late. But the next day, I met people, and some were just leaving, and even having a connection. I actually met a woman. It was her last day, and it was my first day, but such a small world this big world is. She was from Eureka, and I'm from Reading, and they're
Wow,
we're
that's so
we're all
crazy.
over.
on the other
half on
side
the
of
other
it.
side of the
Yeah.
world, and here we are 3 hour, 2.5, 3 hours apart, distance wise in
Right.
our geographic home location. So I think that just shows what a small world can really be. Um, there were many people from America, but there were people from England and India and um, Austria, Australia, gosh, I'm missing South Africa. I met people from um, Singapore. I mean, they were just everywhere, all over the world.
Wow.
It wasn't just women. There were men as well. There were people in their 20s, their 30s, their 40s. I'm in my 50s. There were women in their 50s, and even there were some in their 60s. So
Wow.
it was, just kind of all over. Just and it really showed me a couple things. Oh, but I think important is everyone was there alone as well.
Mm, yeah.
We were all, and it's interesting because one of the friends that my friend Colleen I met there, she was like, "Yeah, we're here because we're all going through shit."
Yeah.
And all over the world. It's not just America. It's not just where I live. It's not just my job. It's not just me, where we sometimes feel isolated. Like, why is this happening to me? But you go someplace across the world and you see everybody's dealing with something. Every problem is has equal weight. I
Hmm.
mean, some are heavier in some ways, but
Sure.
to a person, they're all that. Everyone's struggling with direction at some point in time, whether it's in their 20s,
Hmm.
30s, 40s, like, life changes late in life. And I think that's one thing. Here I am, I just turned 50 last year. And so, in this new part of my life, you think, oh, it's all you're gonna have it all put together. Well, it really changes because I became an empty nester. My life changed dramatically. That was a little bit of part of a change that I was also exploring, not just a career change, but how to be you're learning how to be a mom of two. I'm learning not to not be a mom, but to be a mom of adult children. And it's
Right.
something I'm struggling with. Like, I don't know how to do that. I've never done that.
Right.
Um, so that has been something. And then my career, I'm like, what's going to bring me joy and happiness? How do I reconcile these? Um, but just to see that everyone has something, and it's not, the age isn't a definition of that, and you don't really ever grow out of it, you just change.
Mm.
um, and that it happens all over the world.
Yeah.
Everyone's seeking peace and in something.
Absolutely. Well, no, I think that's so beautiful what you just shared. And I think, like you said, it's such a small world, but at the same time, what you just explained is such a big world. And like, it is crazy how we truly kind of maybe sometimes get wrapped up in our own world or our own problems or our own mind for that matter. And, but then you take a look and like there's a whole world out there. And I think, like you said, yeah, you went all the way on the other side of of the world and you met somebody that lives 3 hours away from you, which is so crazy. But like, also like, think of how big the world is and like what are the odds and the chances of you guys being at that place at the same time. Like it is such a big world, and we all have our own shit. I think that is 1000% accurate, no matter what level or weight. Like you said, it's all, everybody's always going through something, and like you said, life changes, and you can check all the boxes, getting that degree and getting married and doing all the things, and it's like you could, something can come out of left field and you can at least kind of expect it, kind of
Right.
like your job situation. And I think something else that you shared was only having to care for yourself, and I think that kind of clears out the noise a little bit, like the weight of the responsibilities, and like, okay, how do I just get back to me? And I think you've kind of said, I'd love to touch on a few things there. Like you were kind of chasing joy and happiness. Like what brings
Hmm.
me joy? Who am I? And like you said, you're learning to be a mom of adult children versus being a mother of them under the same roof as you. Ironically, they're both now back at home right now. So, but um,
Which makes it
for
even
the
harder
interim.
to be a mom of adult children.
Right, right, right. For the interim. But like, what was that? Like my two for you, questions for you are like, what was that feeling of like, not just the weight, and there was like when you got there, and like did you feel like a sense of relief, or what was it about like truly only having to care for yourself, and kind of not even that, because you kind of had an itinerary, like that was
Yeah.
already planned for you too, so you didn't really even have to, you just had to be present, like truly
Right.
just be present.
And that was one of the things I loved about the choosing retreat, because I did spend a couple weeks in Bali and a couple weeks in Thailand. And
Mm.
so the Bali part was, it had an itinerary. They cooked all of our meals. We had our meals on site. They had us, we had a schedule. We did yoga every morning at 9. We ate around 10. We ate lunch at what, I mean, like, it was just, everything was very regimented. Let's like, if you're gonna, if this is the day we're gonna go see the dolphins, this is what time, this is when your spa service is, like everything.
Yeah.
It was a busy day, but it was a restful day at the same time. So it was really nice to go from my my career being so richly scheduled. Like, I mean, I lived by my calendar, richly scheduled to like, to being scheduled, but to have so much open and have choice. Like,
Flexibility.
I have to go to all those things? I did it. And there was one activity. I am not quite the hiker that my sisters are. And I had done the hike before, the day before, and then another hike was scheduled the next day. I'm like, I don't want to hike again. Like,
Mhm.
I didn't really have fun on that part of it.
That wasn't aligned with what you were
That I
looking.
didn't really want to hike the next. I'm like, "Ugh, I don't want to hike." And I saw it in the book, and it was like, like, you can swap out anything. I'm like, so I swapped out the hike for an extra spa service, like to be able to have those kinds of things. But it was just like, it was so freeing just to
Mm,
be able to do, but also have, I didn't have to make any decisions. So
right.
not making decisions, because that was another part of my job. I had to make decisions constantly, like fiscal decisions, staffing decisions, decisions for people
Decision
to make
fatigue.
decisions.
Yeah.
Like, it was just decisions all the
Decision
time.
fatigue.
And it was fatigue. And I felt also very judged by people um, in that organization sometimes, because I was, a manager, and, you have to sometimes make decisions that aren't popular decisions, and
Right.
you have to, there was no time to, do everything, right? And so you're always going to make, something isn't going to be perfect.
Right.
um but being at that retreat, and having that schedule and just being me, and I found people just, I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, I started to love me again. People were very, I mean, I met some amazing friends there. And then my 2 weeks in Thailand were really, I had to create my own itinerary. I had to make all of my arrangements for my hotel, my food, my tours, where my transportation. Um, Again, I was in control, but so it was a very nice bridge between coming home where everything was totally done for me, and
Hmm.
I didn't have to make any decisions, to making decisions that are totally fun decisions.
Right.
And just for me, what do I want to eat? I don't care, what
Right.
don't I like? What do I want to try? Not worrying about if it's food other people will like, or if
Right.
they're gonna want to spend the whole day looking at temples or whatever. It was just me. What do
What
I
you
want to
want
do?
to do.
Then to coming home. I think it was a really nice transition for me to be able to plan my trip that way.
Absolutely. No, I think kind of what you just finished with was the alignment piece. I think, like you said, you didn't want to do another hike, so you chose something that was more in alignment with what you wanted and why you went there. And I think something, like you said, pleasing others, especially in the job or your family, or you have a heart of gold. I know you, and you want to give, you want to give.
Too.
And I think I said that to you back in April. I said, Becky, you give to everybody, but what's left for you at the end of the day, and so
You
I
did.
think this trip probably not only helped reinforce that practice of just like, what do I want? What is an authenticity with me? What's going to bring me joy and happiness? Because I think a better version of you is going to be a better version of you to everybody else, to be
Yes.
able to give that love, to be able to give, everything that you do give so selflessly,
Yeah.
and I think it's such an important piece, and especially in motherhood, like, yes, it is our job to raise these humans, but it's you can't be depleted all the time. You have to fill your cup in order to give to others. And another thing, a question I had was, you wanted to find joy. What brought you joy? What brought
Hmm.
you happiness? Like, we just kind of tapped into that, so I think this is a great segue. What do you think your calling or your feeling was to I mean, you had this before you left your job to go to Southeast Asia for a retreat. What do you think was your like what in you felt like there was the retreat? What was your feeling on the plane? What was your, like, I guess instinct, intuition? Like, what do you think kind of like, were there steps along the way that kind of led you on this adventure? Or like how did, like, and I know like to take the how out of it because
Yeah.
there's no, I, I won't get to the conclusion yet or the to be continued of this
Yeah.
yet, but like you got to take the how out of it because it just is and it just happens. But like, was there any sense of like feeling that you, that was like a nudge for you, or like that's a big, bold, courageous step for you? Like I said,
To
like,
go, just
yeah,
to
and like,
go
and
and
like
just,
you, yeah, what entered your mind? Like it was already kind of
yeah. I will,
there.
yeah, I would say like I had been looking at retreats for a while and like, oh, what are some retreats? And I was interested in Southeast Asia because our sister had gone there. I was curious,
Mhm.
but that wasn't really. I had looked at different retreats in different countries, but it was really this particular
Mhm.
retreat,
Mhm.
and it really focused on self-awareness. And so a lot of the activities were very unique to this retreat that I hadn't seen. I was using like book retreats, to be able to see like around the world.
Mhm.
I didn't want to go to Arizona. I didn't want to go anywhere in the United States. I knew I wanted to leave. It's also cheaper to go out of the
Wow.
country, like to some of these retreats. Maybe not getting there, not the
Right.
plane, but the actual accommodations. Bali and Thailand were both so affordable to
Mhm.
travel to. It's just getting there, once you're
Right.
there. So that was part of it. Like, okay, you can kind of go for longer. But this retreat in particular was really focused on self-awareness. And that is what I knew I needed
Mhm.
more than anything. I wanted good habits, but I really wanted self-awareness. So they had a couple activities, and it's interesting talking to people that is the same reason they chose this retreat. It wasn't
Mm.
really, it's not the yoga and meditation, but there was an activity called the Leela game, and it's very, and also some aroma psychology, which is a little different than aromatherapy.
Interesting.
So it really gets into the psychology of smells and like your into very in both are very based in your intuition.
Mm.
And so I would say one of the highlights, and I know you asked me this question, what was one of the highlights of your trip? And I thought about it a little bit. And I would say, like, one of the reasons I went and something I really have taken a lot out of is this Leela game. And it's based on like Hinduism and Sanskrit and kind of like just but also the intuition and taking care the messages, kind of taking care of yourself. And it's like shoots and ladders but snakes and arrows, and you kind of go up and down, and you might have to revisit some questions if you weren't, but it really helps you reflect. There's no right or wrong answers. It's
Mhm.
all based on you and your reflections and your intuition, and it's kind of a game of energy and shifting, the energy within yourself. And I knew I needed that. Like I needed an energy shift. So to
Mm.
me, that's why that particular activity was so powerful. I mean, the whole retreat was spiritual in a lot of different ways, in whatever way
Sure.
people wanted to connect. Like
Sure.
it was just very spiritual. I mean, in every aspect. But in whatever way is meaningful to you. So
Yeah.
that could be Christianity, it was Hinduism, it could be none. I mean,
Universe,
yeah, I
whatever you
mean,
call it.
there were people of all beliefs
Mhm.
at this retreat. Um, and I know that one of the questions, I mean, you had to come in with a question. Mine was, what is going to bring me joy and happiness in my future career moves? Like that was the question I entered with. Um, and I would say that I definitely learned a lot, and I know I'll share my blog with you, but there are some things I wrote about in that Leela game, um,
Was
that
that the one where you had to roll the
y
dice to like
yes, you
yeah.
had to roll the dice, and, let me see here. And so it was just kind of, oh, I don't even have it on here, but you had to roll the dice, um, and I just
If it didn't roll a 6
if you don't
or
roll 6, you couldn't get in, and then but it would take me, and I think one of the questions was, really about balance. Like, that was one of the Sanskrit words on there. It was about balance. And I had to really reflect. Another one was like, what are you really attached to? Like,
Mm.
I would have never thought of that question.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's a good
and
question.
and honestly, like, I mean, it's status was kind of like
Mm.
that's one of the reasons it was hard to leave my job. It was a very good job, and it was something I had worked up to.
Mhm.
You'd that was, I realized, an attachment that I had to completely, if I'm going to move on, I have to completely let that go. I
Mm.
had to let go of being in control, right? Because that was another thing that I felt like, and with my child, that was another thing, like I have to let go of some of the control. And that is a trait. That's something that, so sometimes it was very intuitive. Like, what do I have to acknowledge about myself, both the positive and the negative? And so the questions that this game asked were very like things like, what are you attached to? And you just had to reflect, and you could journal if you want, or you could anything till it was your turn again. And sometimes the game would return you to that question by
Mm.
way of a snake tail
Okay.
if it
It wasn't an
if
alignment.
you hadn't really maybe resolved it yet, and we saw that with all the players and different questions. For me, it was really, there was a question about like, what do you need to move forward? It was like really building in some of these practices. So I've kept up with my yoga. I've kept up with my meditation. I've kept up with some of the things to create balance because
Mm.
balance was missing. Um, so it was a whole series of questions, that I think was an adventure in itself in a
Mm-hmm.
very different way. It was truly a self adventure,
Yeah.
deeper than I think. I mean, it was like a little therapy game. That's what it
Right.
was like. It was like many therapy sessions in a
In a
game.
game.
It was very cool. So I really took a lot out of that. And I think one of the things, the joy and the thing I shared, it wasn't in Leela, it was in one of the other activities, but still in the same vein of self-awareness and some of the structured activities we had. And one was with some metaphysical cards. But the director who was helping with the games and kind of guiding the activities, um, I was talking about, changes and the next step and finding that joy and happiness in my career. And I said, I had my dream job and I just wasn't happy anymore. I was happy, but I wasn't happy anymore.
Mhm.
I didn't have the balance. It wasn't bringing me the joy and fulfillment. And she said, Rebecca, sometimes when we fulfill our dreams, it's time to find another dream.
Mm.
And I think that's where I'm at right now.
Mhm. Well, I love that, and I think it's such a valuable lesson. Like I asked, like, what do you feel like called you there? You're gonna feel like it was your intuition and your self-awareness, and like you said, just accepting responsibility for yourself too. Like that's a lot of people
Yeah.
feel like their circumstances need to change in order for it, like you said, to be better, or you expect it to be this way, or and I think no, like truly, like the change has to happen within all of us individually before your circumstances can change. And so I think that that is so beautiful. And to bring that self-awareness to light, I think is super important. And like I said, I feel like we've kind of switched roles a little bit, just the planner and the new mom role that I'm in right now, I feel like. But just even on this little adventure we went on this past week, it's been just amazing to see you in such a better space. Like you're not as stressed, you're not,
Yes.
I mean, you're just a different, like that weight has been lifted off your shoulders. And I'm happy because,
Yeah.
you're my sister and I care about you and I
Yeah.
love you and I want the best for you. And so I think that's just so amazing. And I know you're still kind of, I know you're back home from the adventure, but you're still kind of on the adventure. And I think you're just kind of more receptive to what is meant to be and what's coming your way. And I don't want to speak for you, but I think
Yeah.
that's such a beautiful, like this next chapter is going to be
Right.
a very beautiful,
Yeah.
role for you.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely didn't believe in manifesting, but I mean, not believe, I just didn't see evidence and
Awareness.
choose to see it, I guess. Like I
Yeah.
wasn't, yeah, aware.
Aware.
And there's certain things that happened. It's even things in my job. I'm like, oh, I wanted to do this, and it happened a different it didn't happen the way I would have imagined it happening. It happened in a different way to create opportunities for other people. Because I was in a manager role, I really was trying to create opportunities for other people. Well, I created opportunities for other people in just a way that I didn't imagine was going to happen,
Right.
right? And then I, like you said, I was here in early April, and I was like, I want to go on this retreat, and kind of just talking about it and just manifesting that retreat, and it just happened sooner than
A month later.
yeah, it
Literally.
happened sooner than I anticipated. And spent a lot of times, a lot of my questions is, in a lot of the activities at the retreat was like, what are your biggest desires? What do you want for yourself? What brings, just really honing in on the desires. Like that was a question I had to come back to several times, by the way. Um, and I I desired some things, and I didn't want to be too greedy, but I just put them out, and
And why didn't you want to? What do you think was there to kind of?
I just, like I don't know. It's just like a habit to not. I just don't. I'm not kind of person to just want for all those things. I didn't want to just feel like I had to have everything. But it was, this is kind of like dream board, right? Like, what do
Sure.
you want? And there were certain things and that I would love to continue to do, or that I loved about my job that I didn't want to give up, that were really hard for me to let go. Connections and certain work that I did, and but I love also working with teachers and having that direct impact and really doing that. And so, it's n- everything is still kind of in the middle of development, but it's kind of like I'm getting having my cake and eating it too so far. And but everything can change along the way. So I'm just really excited about what's to come. And I think that enthusiasm and that excitement, oh gosh, I haven't felt that in a while. Um, and also boundaries, what I'm not willing to feel again.
Yes.
Like, I don't want not settling is really important to me, like not settling for just something. And there's been many jobs that I've turned down because I'm like, I don't want to, like that's not what I see myself. That wasn't in my vision, right? And it's like I want to do this right. And then, but also I I I left for a reason. I went on this retreat for a reason, and I want to be true to myself and my boundaries for. And there's still a lot of work to do. There's still a lot of work to do with my family. There's still a lot of work to do with myself.
Right.
We're not at the end. It's just I have tools.
Right. It's a step in the right
Yeah.
direction.
And it was a beautiful country to visit. I mean, truly an adventure. Some of the most incredible landscape. I mean, went on this dolphin adventure that was amazing. Sea life, my time with elephants in Thailand. I mean, just the memories of and the
Self-discovery.
yeah, not just myself, but just just being free to enjoy those things, and give myself permission to enjoy something I love to do and travel and see the world.
And be present in the moment. I feel like
Yes.
it was really something that, like you said, you weren't having to plan anything for anybody else. You could really relish it in and soak it in and just be like in the moment and enjoy that moment because you knew it wasn't going to last and you were coming
Right.
home and, you know,
I told Heather the other day I was at her yoga class, and we're doing some things. And when I'm doing yoga, I'm on this yoga deck in Bali. Like I'm in her studio. I'm in the studio physically, but my mind is feeling this, and my feeling some of the same feels. Like so, it's a place I go back to. When they say a happy place, I have lots of happy places, but this is one that I can. It's a very tangible space to go back and remember my why, I guess,
yeah,
and
it's your,
what, yeah,
it's your balance.
yeah, it's my balance. It definitely is, a balance. And um, I don't, I don't need, I don't need everything I had to be happy. I need different things. I need time is more valuable than I think we all realize.
Yeah. And like you said, I think time is money, and like that you're willing to give up that status that was hard for you, and that's something you discovered,
Yeah.
but for more time,
Yes.
and
Yes.
that's
I mean, I'm so grateful for my time that I've had this summer, time with you, time with Heather, time with um my husband, time with, my
friends
kids,
that
my
you've been able to
friends.
catch up with.
I just I've had time, and I haven't had to, and I need to get, there has to be a balance, like,
Sure.
but I can't play all the time. I mean, I want to, but
Right.
I want to play all the time, but that's not reality.
Right.
But at the same time, it's just, yes, I think I am so much more at peace, and I feel lighter, and thank you for acknowledging that. I guess that you saw that, because I do feel different, and I will tell you, my mental health is in a much better state.
Good.
That is a much, much better place, and that change, you just have to kind of keep those practices up for self-care. I think that's important for everyone to remember, is self-care is really important. Um, and putting ourselves on our to-do list is something we need to do.
1000%. Couldn't agree more. And not want to scratch it off. Just add something else at the bottom of that
Yes.
to-do list every time. Well, I think now that, like you said, you have the tools for the self-awareness to move forward, to carry into, like you said, all the things you're implementing now into your life, and the boundaries.
Yeah.
And so, thank you so much. And I'm so proud of you. I'm just so happy. I'm happy for you. I'm
Thank you.
so happy. And I just love that you came on to share your story of your adventure. And if there is one thing that you could tell yourself, your old self, hindsight 2020, looking back, what would you have told yourself in April
Yeah.
or March?
I think definitely, to not lose myself for the sake of my career. I didn't see that coming. And if someone would have given me that, like, don't lose yourself, have those boundaries, and um, that is, I wish I would have saw that a little bit more. There's just so many times that I love education, and I am just so passionate about it. Just sometimes you end up at a place that is, the values aren't in alignment, and they can have good values, but they're just still, like, there's some misalignment of how some of the executive leaders behave, and that's not who I am, and I want to be that joyful. I want to be, I'm going to be pure of heart. I'm going to be those things, and that's who I am. And
Unapologetically.
unapologetically. And so just to go back and not lose myself or my joy. I'm glad I have some of my fun back. I lost that, it's like, oh gosh, I'm not fun. And I feel, like, still be fun. Like, that's
Right. It's important.
important.
It's so
Don't,
important.
yes, don't just be all business,
Right.
don't, that's, I guess, part of it too. Like,
Yeah.
overcommitting so much that you don't have time for fun. So that's what I wish I would, tell myself. And you don't have to be in control of everything.
Well, I think you're doing a good job of letting go of control. It's a good start by leaving for Southeast Asia for a whole month.
Yes,
I mean,
I did. And guess what? Everyone was fine.
everyone and everything is fine.
Yep.
And yeah,
It was really good. So that yeah.
I feel like those are keys to live my life, not just career wise, but
Yeah.
just your life in general. I think it's all applicable. So
Yes.
well, thank you so
You're
much
welcome.
for being here with me this week, and
Yes.
on a guest on the podcast. I appreciate you so much for
Yes.
sharing your story. And if you could share with the listeners if they'd like, I know you mentioned you have a blog now from your
Yes.
adventures and social media. I know you're a lot better than your youngest sister on social media. So if you want to share whatever you want to share.
I did create a blog. It's joyfulandsoulfulwanderings.com. And I created it more just to tell my story to myself, to remember, to post my pictures in a place, to capture some of my journal entries and relive the moments. And so it really was created for myself, but several people asked about my trip, and so it was dual purpose. Anyone that wants to kind of know about the trip and planning to write about our sister adventure too, because it was joyful and soulful as well, right? But just some of those things, such as a place if you want to find out more about my time in Southeast Asia, and other fun wanderings that I will have, but joyful and soulful wanderings.
Awesome.
Yes.
Well, thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
And I will be sure to include that in the show notes. And I can't wait to check it out as well. I've just been living vicariously through you and all the photos that you send me. So I need to go check it out. I think that's such a great way to like capture the memories and the moments, kind of like this podcast. Like, I'm gonna grow through this, I'm gonna evolve, like, but to have these stories to be able to share with my kids or whoever wants to it's a passion project. So it's just
Right. Passion.
but it's just something to share and uplift other people. But it's for me as like I benefit from this also.
Yes.
So,
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Leslie, for inviting me. And this was a really fun way to spend the afternoon.
yes, thank you. I love you.
Love you too.
Thank you for joining me and listening to the Kindred Journey podcast. If this episode resonated with you, please consider taking the time to rate and review the podcast and share this episode with family and friends who you think might enjoy it. Your positive feedback helps me reach more courageous women like you. This is my passion project, so without you, I wouldn't be here doing this, and I deeply appreciate your support. Until next time.